The water had gone cold an hour ago, but Lady Catherine Ashford remained in the copper tub. She stared at her pale hands beneath the surface. The soap had long dissolved. Her skin had wrinkled like old parchment. Still, she could not bring herself to leave. This room, this moment, was the last peace she would know. Tomorrow, she would marry a stranger, a duke she had never met, a man who had purchased her like livestock at market. Her stepmother's voice echoed in her memory. Be grateful someone wants you at all. 26 years old and plain as bread. Your father's debts would have sent us all to debtor's prison. The Duke of Ravenswood paid handsomely for a wife. Any wife, even you. Catherine had learned long ago not to cry. Tears changed nothing. They only gave cruel people satisfaction, so she sat in the cold water of what was now her husband's private chamber and tried to memorize what hope had felt like. She had felt it once, years ago, before her father died, before her stepmother and stepsisters had turned her into an unpaid servant in her own home, before she became something to be sold. The door opened. Catherine's breath caught. She grabbed for the towel on the nearby chair, but her wet hand slipped. The cloth fell to the floor, far from her reach. She sank deeper into the water, wrapping her arms around herself. Her heart hammered against her ribs. A man stood in the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in dark evening clothes. His black hair was slightly disheveled, as though he had run his hands through it many times. His face was all hard angles and shadows. This was the Duke of Ravenswood, her husband. They had spoken vows just 4 hours ago in front of a bored magistrate and 2 paid witnesses. He should have turned away. Any gentleman would have. Instead, he remained perfectly still. His dark eyes met hers across the room. He did not look away, did not avert his gaze, did not offer the polite fiction that he had not seen her. I thought you would be in the Duchess's chambers, he said. His voice was low and rough, like gravel underfoot. This is my private room. I know. Catherine's voice trembled. The housekeeper said the Duchess's chambers had not been opened in years. There was dust everywhere. She offered me this room to bathe, while servants prepared the other. I thought I would be finished before you returned from your study. The Duke stepped inside. He closed the door behind him. The soft click of the latch sounded impossibly loud. Catherine's pulse roared in her ears. She had been warned about wedding nights. Her stepmother had told her to lie still and think of England, to endure, to submit. She had not expected it to begin like this, with her vulnerable and exposed and unprepared. But the Duke did not approach the tub. He walked to the fireplace instead. He knelt and began building a fire from the wood stacked beside the hearth. His movements were practiced and efficient. Within moments, flames crackled to life. Warmth began to spread through the cold room. You are shivering, he said without looking at her. The water must be freezing by now. Catherine could not find words. She watched his broad back as he stood and removed his jacket. He draped it over a chair. Then he walked to a large wardrobe and pulled out a heavy dressing gown, dark blue silk, lined with fur. He carried it to the tub and held it open, his back turned to her now. Come, he said quietly, before you catch your death. She hesitated. This made no sense. He had paid £30,000 for her, £30,000 to settle her father's gambling debts and provide dowries for her stepsisters. He owned her now, as surely as he owned this house and the lands surrounding it. He could do as he pleased, yet he stood with his back turned, offering warmth and privacy. Catherine rose from the water. Cold air hit her wet skin, and she gasped. Quickly, she stepped from the tub. Her feet left wet prints on the carpet. The Duke held perfectly still as she slipped her arms into the oversized robe. It swallowed her small frame. The silk was soft as a whisper against her skin. The fur lining held the warmth of the fire. She tied the robe closed with shaking hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Only then did he turn. His eyes swept over her once, quick and impersonal, as though checking that she was decent. Then his gaze returned to her face. He studied her for a long moment. She had been told all her life that she was plain. Mousy brown hair, ordinary grey eyes, a face too thin and angular. Her stepmother said she looked like a half-starved sparrow. Her stepsisters had laughed. But the Duke did not laugh. He did not frown either. His expression revealed nothing. "You should sleep in the Duchess's chambers tonight," he said. "I will have the staff prepare them properly. Tomorrow will be soon enough for you to settle in." Catherine blinked. "But we are married. Is it not expected that we—" She could not finish the sentence. Heat flooded her cheeks. "Many things are expected." The Duke's jaw tightened. "That does not mean we must do them tonight. You are exhausted. So am I. We have time." He moved past her to the door. She caught the scent of him as he passed. Sandalwood and leather, and something darker, like smoke. He paused, with his hand on the latch. "My name is Alexander," he said without turning. "You need not call me Your Grace when we are alone. I find the title tiresome." Then he was gone. The door closed softly behind him. Catherine stood alone in the warm room, wrapped in his robe, her mind spinning. This was not what she had expected. Not at all. She looked down at the silk surrounding her. It still held his warmth. Her fingers traced the soft fur at the collar. Something unfamiliar stirred in her chest. Not quite hope, but close. A tiny, fragile thing like a candle flame in a vast darkness. Perhaps, she thought, this would not be the prison she had imagined. The thought terrified her more than cruelty ever could. 3 days passed before Catherine saw her husband again. The servants said he had gone to inspect the tenant farms on the far edge of the estate. She spent those days exploring her new home. Ravenswood Manor was enormous. 50 rooms at least, though she had not counted them all. Most were closed up, furniture covered in cloth, windows shuttered. The house felt like a beautiful corpse, perfectly preserved but lifeless. Mrs. Wells, the housekeeper, followed Catherine everywhere with a worried expression. She was a round woman, with kind eyes and work-roughened hands. She had served the Hartley family for 40 years. "The Duke has been alone for so long," Mrs. Wells said as they walked through the portrait gallery. "Since his mother died 5 years ago, he closed up most of the house then. Said there was no point keeping rooms open that no one would use." Catherine paused before a portrait of a beautiful woman with dark hair and laughing eyes. His mother? The late Duchess. A lovely woman, she was full of life. The Duke adored her. When she died of fever, something in him died too. He stopped hosting parties, stopped going to London for the season, just buried himself in running the estate. Mrs. Wells shook her head sadly. "A young man should not live like a hermit. It is not natural." Catherine studied the portrait. The Duchess wore a gown of deep emerald green. Diamonds glittered at her throat. But it was her smile that caught Catherine's attention. Warm and genuine, full of joy. The kind of smile Catherine had not seen in years. Why did he marry me? The question escaped before Catherine could stop it. He could have had anyone, someone beautiful and accomplished, someone worthy of this place. Mrs. Wells looked at her with surprise. "Did he not tell you? We have barely spoken." The housekeeper's expression softened. "His uncle, the Earl of Pemberton, has been pressing him to marry for years. threatening to petition the Queen to declare the Duke unfit if he did not produce an heir. The Earl would inherit if the Duke died without children. He has been circling like a vulture. That one. Finally, the Duke gave in. He told his solicitor to find him a wife, someone who needed help, someone who would not expect love or romance, someone who would simply run his household and leave him in peace. Catherine's chest tightened. So that was it. She was convenient, a solution to a problem. Not a wife, but a piece on a chessboard, moved to block an opponent's strategy. "I see," she said quietly. Mrs. Wells reached out and patted her hand. "Do not look so sad, my lady. The Duke is a good man. Distant, perhaps, and too serious by half, but good. He treats his servants fairly. He lowers rents when tenants face hardship. He may not smile much, but he has a kind heart buried somewhere beneath all that ice. You will see." Catherine wanted to believe her, but she had learned not to trust kind words. They were too often followed by cruelty. That evening, she dined alone at one end of an absurdly long table. 20 people could have sat comfortably in the dining room. Instead, it was just Catherine, a bowl of soup, and silence so thick she could feel it pressing against her skin. The servants brought course after course: roasted pheasant, glazed carrots, fresh bread, lemon cake. Enough food to feed a family for a week. She picked at each dish, her appetite gone. When she finally retreated to her chambers, she found her stepmother's letter waiting on her desk. The seal was already broken. Someone had read it first. The Duke, probably, or his secretary. She unfolded the paper with trembling fingers. "Catherine, I trust you are performing your duties adequately. Remember what I told you. Do not embarrass us. Do not give the Duke reason to regret his purchase. Keep your opinions to yourself. Speak only when spoken to. Be grateful for your position. You have been given far more than you deserve. Your stepsisters send their regards. They are both engaged to respectable gentlemen now, thanks to the dowries the Duke's money provided. Try not to ruin their chances with any scandal. Do your duty. Lady Margaret Ashford." Catherine crumpled the letter in her fist. Even here, hundreds of miles from her stepmother's house, the woman's poison reached her. She threw the paper into the fire and watched it burn. Flames consumed the cruel words until nothing remained but ash. She had just changed into her nightgown when a knock sounded at her door. She grabbed a shawl and wrapped it around her shoulders before answering. A young maid stood in the hallway, curtsying nervously. "Begging your pardon, my lady. The Duke requests your presence in the library." Catherine's heart stuttered. "Now? But it is nearly midnight." "Yes, my lady. He just returned from the farms. He asked for you specifically." There was no refusing. Catherine followed the maid through dark corridors lit only by candles. The library was on the ground floor, tucked into the west wing. The door stood open. Warm light spilled into the hallway. The Duke sat at a desk near the fire. Papers covered the surface before him, ledgers and letters and maps. He still wore his riding clothes, dusty from travel. His dark hair was wind-blown. Stubble shadowed his jaw. He looked up as Catherine entered. "Forgive the late hour," he said. "I have been riding since dawn, but I wanted to speak with you before another day passed." Catherine stepped inside. The library smelled of old books and pipe smoke. Thousands of volumes lined the walls from floor to ceiling. She had never seen so many books in one place. "You asked for me, Your Grace?" "Alexander," he corrected. "Please." She nodded, unable to speak his name aloud. It felt too intimate, too presumptuous. He stood and moved around the desk. Fatigue showed in the lines around his eyes, the set of his shoulders. He had been working himself to exhaustion. "Why?" What was he avoiding? "I wanted to apologize," he said, "for leaving so abruptly after our wedding, and for the circumstances of our marriage. You deserve better than to be treated as a transaction, but I am not skilled at pretty speeches or courtship. I thought it best to be honest. You are here because I needed a wife and you needed escape from difficult circumstances. That is the foundation of our arrangement. I do not expect love. I do not expect passion, but I do expect mutual respect. You are the Duchess of Ravenswood now. This is your home. You may do as you please with it. Change anything you wish. The staff will answer to you. You need only ask." Catherine stared at him. This cold, formal speech was somehow worse than cruelty. At least cruelty was honest. This polite distance felt like a wall between them, high and insurmountable. "What do you expect from me?" she asked. Her voice sounded small in the large room. "Simply be the mistress of this house. Manage the servants. Oversee the household accounts. Receive guests if any come, though few do these days. Beyond that, I expect nothing. Your time is your own. There is a music room if you play. The gardens if you enjoy walking. The library is at your disposal. I am gone most days, seeing to estate business. You will barely notice my presence. And at night?" The question escaped before she could stop it. His jaw tightened. Something flickered in his dark eyes. Pain, perhaps, or regret. "I will not force myself on you when you are ready. If you are ever ready, you need only say so. An heir is necessary eventually, but there is no rush." Catherine felt something crack inside her chest. This was worse than she had imagined, worse than cruelty or indifference. He was offering her freedom, yes, but also loneliness. A life of comfort and emptiness. She would be a ghost in this enormous house, as dead as the covered furniture in the closed rooms. "I understand," she whispered. He nodded once. "Good. Then we have an accord. Good night, Catherine." It was dismissal. She turned to go, but paused at the door. Some reckless impulse made her look back. "Do you ever wish things were different?" she asked. "That you had married for love instead of necessity?" The Duke's expression shuttered completely. He turned back to his desk, his broad shoulders rigid. "Love is a luxury I cannot afford. Good night, Your Grace." The title hurt more than it should have. She left him there, surrounded by papers and loneliness, and wondered which of them was the greater prisoner. Weeks passed in a strange, quiet rhythm. Catherine rose each morning and took breakfast alone. She spent hours in the library losing herself in books, novels and histories and poetry. The Duke had collected volumes on every subject imaginable. She read until her eyes ached, desperate for escape into other worlds. In the afternoons, she walked the gardens. They were overgrown, but still beautiful. Rose bushes gone wild, ivy climbing stone walls, a fountain, cracked and dry, that had once been grand. She found herself drawn to this forgotten space. It reminded her of herself, neglected, but still alive, still capable of beauty given care. She began working in the garden herself. Mrs. Wells protested that it was not proper for a duchess to dig in the dirt, but Catherine ignored her. She pruned the rose bushes, pulled weeds, cleared the fountain, and set water flowing again. The work made her hands bleed. It made her back ache, but it also made her feel alive in a way she had not felt in years. The Duke remained distant. She saw him at dinner sometimes, though he often took meals in his study. When they did dine together, conversation was stilted and formal. He asked about her day. She gave brief answers. He told her about tenant concerns or crop yields. She nodded politely. Then silence would fall, heavy as snow, until one of them invented an excuse to leave. But Catherine began to notice small things. On cold mornings, she found the fire in her sitting room already blazing when she woke. The servants insisted they had not lit it. She suspected Alexander had come while she slept. Books she mentioned wanting to read appeared on her nightstand, though she had told no one but herself. When she asked Mrs. Wells for funds to repair the garden fountain, the money appeared within a day, far more than she had requested. Enough to restore the entire garden if she wished. And sometimes, late at night, she heard footsteps in the hallway outside her room. They always paused by her door. Never entered, just stopped for a moment, as though someone stood listening, then moved away. She never opened the door to check. But she knew who it was. He was watching her. Quietly, carefully, from a distance. She did not know what to make of it. One afternoon she was kneeling in the garden when she heard voices, male voices, coming from the terrace above. She recognized Alexander's deep tone. The other voice was unfamiliar, sharp and nasally. "You have been married 6 weeks, and still no sign of an heir," the stranger said. "Are you even performing your marital duties, nephew?" Catherine froze. She should not eavesdrop, but the rosebush hid her from view, and she could not resist listening. "My marriage is not your concern, uncle." Alexander's voice was cold as winter. "Everything about you is my concern. I am your heir until you produce a son. I have every right to ensure you are fulfilling your obligations. Some say your wife is barren. Others say you do not even bed her. Which is it? I will say this once. My relationship with my wife is private. You will not speak of her again. You will not question her. You will not spread rumors about her. Is that clear? You always were too soft. Your father would be ashamed. A duke who cannot even manage his own wife." The sound of a fist hitting flesh made Catherine gasp. She clapped her hand over her mouth. Through the rose bushes she saw Alexander grab his uncle by the collar and shove him against the stone balustrade. "My father," Alexander said, each word sharp as broken glass, "would have thrown you from this terrace for insulting his daughter-in-law. You are here because my mother asked me on her deathbed to maintain family ties. But my patience has limits. Test them again, and you will find yourself barred from this estate permanently. Now get out." He released the earl, who stumbled backward, sputtering with rage. But he went. Catherine heard his footsteps retreating. A door slammed. Silence fell. She remained hidden, hardly breathing. After a long moment, Alexander's voice drifted down to her, soft and weary. "You can come out now, Catherine. I know you are there." Her cheeks burned. She stood slowly, brushing dirt from her dress. She looked up at the terrace. Alexander stood at the balustrade, looking down at her. Blood dripped from his knuckles. "You are hurt," she said. "It is nothing. Let me see." She did not wait for permission. She climbed the stone steps to the terrace. Alexander watched her approach with something like surprise in his dark eyes. She took his hand gently and examined his split knuckles. Blood welled from the torn skin. "You should not have done that," she said quietly. "He is your uncle, your family. He insulted you. I have endured worse. That does not make it acceptable." His voice was fierce. "You are my wife, my duchess. I will not tolerate anyone speaking of you with disrespect. Not my uncle, not anyone." Catherine looked up at him. They stood close together, his hand still cradled in hers. She could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, could feel the warmth of his body. Her heart beat against her ribs like a trapped bird. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care? You do not even know me." He pulled his hand from hers slowly. I know you spend hours in the garden, restoring beauty to a place I had forgotten. I know you read poetry late into the night. I know you take your tea with honey, but no milk. I know you cry sometimes when you think no one can hear. I know you are kind to the servants, even when you believe no one is watching. I know far more than you realize, Catherine. Her breath caught. You have been watching me. Yes. No apology, no shame. Just simple truth. Why? She asked again. He turned away from her, gripping the balustrade with his bloodied hand. His knuckles went white. Because I am trying to understand what I have done. I took you from one prison and placed you in another. A gilded cage, but a cage nonetheless. You speak to no one. You have no friends here. You wander this enormous house like a ghost. I did this to you. I thought I was offering salvation, but I may have simply offered a different kind of suffering. Catherine stared at his broad back, at the tension in his shoulders, at the way he held himself apart as though touch might burn him. She thought of the cold water in the copper tub on their wedding night. The way he had not looked away, but neither had he taken advantage. The robe he had offered, the fire he had built, the distance he maintained. He was protecting her from himself, from expectations, from the pain of hoping for something that might never be. But in protecting her, he was also isolating her, and isolating himself. I am lonely, she said quietly. You are right about that, but not in the way you think. I have been lonely my whole life. In my father's house after he died, in my stepmother's care, surrounded by people who hated me. This loneliness is different. Here I am lonely for you. You are my husband, you live in this house, but I never see you. You leave me kind gifts, and build my fires and defend my honor, but you will not speak to me, will not sit with me, will not let me know you. That is the cage, Alexander, not this house, you. He went very still. She waited, her heart hammering. Finally, he turned to face her. Pain etched lines around his eyes. I do not know how to do this, he said. Be close to someone. My mother was the last person I loved, and losing her nearly destroyed me. I cannot go through that again. It is easier to be alone. Safer. Safer for whom? For both of us. Catherine stepped closer. She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away. He did not. Her fingers touched his jaw, feeling the rough stubble there. He flinched but held still. I am not your mother, she said softly. I am not going to die and leave you. I am right here, and I am lonely too. We could be lonely together. Would that not be better than being lonely alone? His hand came up to cover hers. His skin was warm. His eyes searched her face, as though looking for answers to questions he had not asked. I am not an easy man to care for, he said. I am cold and distant and broken in ways I do not know how to fix. I am plain and awkward and damaged. We are well matched, then. You are not plain. The words came out fierce, almost angry. You are beautiful. I think you are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. I have thought so since the moment I walked into that room and found you in my bath. You looked at me with those grey eyes, terrified but defiant, and something in my chest cracked open. I have been trying to seal it shut ever since. But every day you make it harder. Every time I see you in the garden, covered in dirt and smiling at flowers, every time I hear you laugh at something you read, every time I stand outside your door at night and listen to you breathe and wish I had the courage to knock, you are destroying my careful distance, Catherine, and I am terrified of what will happen when it is completely gone. Tears blurred Catherine's vision. She had never heard anything so honest, so raw, She stepped closer still until she could feel his breath on her face. "Let it be gone," she whispered. "Please. I am tired of distance. I am tired of walls. I want to know you. Let me try." For a long moment he did not move. Then, slowly, his arms came around her. He pulled her against his chest and held her there. His heart thundered beneath her ear. His chin rested on top of her head. They stood together on the terrace as afternoon sun slanted through the trees, holding each other like drowning people who had finally found solid ground. "I will try," he said into her hair. "I do not know if I can be what you need, but I will try." It was enough. For now, it was enough. Everything changed after that day. Alexander began taking breakfast with her each morning. They sat together at the long table, and slowly conversation came easier. He told her about the estate, the tenant families and their concerns, the crops and weather patterns, the repairs needed on cottages. She listened and asked questions. Sometimes she offered suggestions. He never dismissed them. Sometimes he even implemented them. In the afternoons, he joined her in the garden. He worked beside her, his fine clothes growing dirty. He had strong hands and a patient touch. Together, they brought the garden back to life. Roses bloomed in shades of pink and red and white. The fountain sparkled in the sunlight. Stone paths emerged from beneath years of overgrowth. As they worked, they talked. Real conversations. He told her about his childhood, long summers at Ravenswood with his mother and father. His father had died when Alexander was 15, leaving him to manage an enormous estate far too young. His mother had helped him, guided him, until fever took her too. "I do not know who I am without duty," he admitted one day. They sat on a stone bench beside the fountain, dirt under their nails, sun warming their faces. "Since my father died, I have been the Duke. That is all. I wake each morning and think about rents and repairs and responsibilities. I have forgotten how to be anything else, how to simply be Alexander." Catherine understood. "My stepmother told me I was worthless so many times that I believed her. When you married me, I thought I was simply trading one form of servitude for another, that I would spend my life being grateful for scraps of kindness. I am learning that I can want more than that I deserve more. It is terrifying and wonderful at the same time." He took her hand. His thumb traced circles on her palm. "We are a pair of broken people, are we not? Perhaps, or perhaps we are just people who have been hurt, learning to heal." He smiled. It was the first real smile she had seen from him. It transformed his face, softening the hard angles, reaching his eyes. She wanted to make him smile like that again and again, 1,000 times. In the evenings, they sat together in the library. He read estate correspondence while she lost herself in novels. Sometimes she read passages aloud to him. He would listen with his eyes closed, a small smile playing at his lips. Other times, he would tell her about the letters he received, complaints and requests and news from other estates. One night, she found him staring into the fire, a letter crumpled in his fist. She set down her book. "What is wrong?" "My uncle is spreading rumors in London, saying I am unfit to manage the dukedom, that I have become a hermit, that my marriage is a sham, and my wife is a fortune hunter who trapped me." Anger flared hot in Catherine's chest. "That is ridiculous. You paid my debts. I had no fortune to hunt. The truth does not matter to him. He wants the title. He has wanted it since my father died. He is furious that I finally married and might produce an heir. He will do anything to discredit me." Catherine moved to kneel before his chair. She took his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. "Then we prove him wrong. We go to London for the season. We show society that we are a real couple, that you are a capable duke, that I am not some scheming fortune hunter. We face the rumors head on. I do not want to subject you to that. London society can be vicious. They will pick you apart. Judge everything you do and say and wear. Let them. I have survived worse than gossip. I can survive this too, especially if you are beside me. He searched her face. When did you become so brave? When I stopped being alone. He pulled her up from the floor and into his lap. She gasped, but he held her there, his arms secure around her. They had grown more comfortable with touch over the weeks. Hands held, shoulders brushed, brief embraces. But this was different, more intimate. She could feel the solid warmth of him beneath her, could feel his heart beating. I do not deserve you, he said quietly. Yes, you do. We deserve each other. We deserve happiness. Do not let your uncle steal that from us. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her cheek. You have changed me, Catherine. I did not think that was possible. I thought I was too far gone, too cold. But you have brought warmth back into my life, into this house. I wake in the morning and look forward to the day because I know I will see you, hear your voice, make you smile. I have not felt that way in years, perhaps ever. Her throat tightened with emotion. You have changed me too. You made me remember that I am more than what cruel people said about me. You look at me like I matter, like I am beautiful, like I am worthy of respect and kindness. No one has ever looked at me that way before. Then they were all fools. He leaned his forehead against hers. You are extraordinary. I am sorry it took me so long to say so. They sat together as the fire burned low, holding each other, no longer afraid of the closeness. Catherine felt something unfurling in her chest, something tender and fierce and terrifying. It felt like hope. It felt like joy. It felt like love. She did not say the words aloud. Not yet. But she felt them, carried them in her heart, like a secret treasure. And when Alexander walked her to a chamber door that night, he kissed her forehead gently. Good night, Catherine. Sleep well. Good night, Alexander. She watched him walk down the hallway to his own room. He paused at his door and looked back. Their eyes met across the distance. He smiled. She smiled back. Then they retreated to their separate chambers, but the walls between them felt thinner. Soon, she thought, they would disappear entirely. They left for London 2 weeks later. The journey took 3 days by carriage. Catherine had never been to the city. She pressed her face to the window as they drove through crowded streets. Everywhere she looked, there were people, vendors selling goods, ladies in fine dresses, gentlemen on horseback, buildings rising 3 and 4 stories high. The Duke's London townhouse was located in Mayfair, the most fashionable district. It was smaller than Ravenswood Manor, but still grand. 4 stories of white stone with black iron railings and gleaming windows. Servants lined up to greet them as the carriage stopped. Mrs. Wells had sent word ahead. Catherine's new lady's maid, a cheerful young woman named Betsy, helped her unpack. That evening, Alexander came to her sitting room wearing formal evening attire, black coat and trousers, white waistcoat. His dark hair was neatly combed. We have been invited to Lady Pemberton's ball tonight, he said. My aunt, my uncle's wife. She is kinder than her husband, but she is still family. We must attend. It will be our first public appearance together. Catherine's stomach churned with nerves. I do not have anything suitable to wear. Yes, you do. I had several gowns made for you. They arrived this afternoon. Betsy will help you choose. She should have protested the expense. should have insisted she did not need new clothes. But the truth was, her stepmother had sold most of her good dresses to pay debts. She had nothing suitable for a duchess. Betsy brought out 3 gowns. Catherine chose a deep blue silk that brought out the grey of her eyes. The neckline was lower than she was used to. The waist was fitted, showing her slender figure. Betsy arranged her hair in an elegant style, with small pearls woven through the brown strands. When Catherine looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked like a duchess, like someone important, but her hands still shook as she descended the stairs to meet Alexander. He waited in the foyer. When he saw her, he went very still. His eyes traveled over her slowly, taking in every detail. Heat flooded Catherine's cheeks. "You look beautiful," he said. His voice was rough. "Truly beautiful. Every man in that ballroom will envy me tonight. I feel like I am wearing a costume. You are wearing your rightful place. You are the Duchess of Ravenswood. Hold your head high. Let them see your strength." He offered his arm. She took it, drawing courage from his solid presence beside her. Together they climbed into the carriage and rode through London to Lady Pemberton's townhouse. The ball was already underway when they arrived. Music drifted from the open doors, light spilled down the steps. A butler announced them as they entered. His Grace, the Duke of Ravenswood, and Her Grace, the Duchess of Ravenswood. Conversation died. Every head in the ballroom turned to stare. Catherine felt dozens of eyes examining her, judging her. She lifted her chin and smiled, though her heart raced. Lady Pemberton approached quickly. She was a tall woman, with greying hair and a kind face. "Alexander, how wonderful to see you, and this must be your bride. Welcome, my dear, welcome." She took Catherine's hands and squeezed them warmly. Relief flooded through Catherine. At least one person here did not hate her, but others were less welcoming. As they moved through the ballroom, Catherine heard whispers, women behind fans, voices just loud enough to be heard. "That is her, the fortune hunter. I heard she trapped him into marriage, threatened scandal. She is plain, is she not? I expected someone more impressive. Poor Duke, forced to marry beneath him." Each word was a small cut. Catherine kept her expression serene, but inside she bled. Alexander's hand tightened on her arm. He led her to the dance floor. "Ignore them," he said, as he took her in his arms for a waltz. "They are not worth your attention. They all hate me. They do not know you. They hate the idea of you because my uncle has been spreading lies, but we will show them the truth. We will show them that you are extraordinary." He held her close as they danced. Closer than was strictly proper. His eyes never left her face. To anyone watching, they must have looked like a couple deeply in love. The truth was more complicated, but not by much. Catherine knew she loved him. She had known for weeks. She simply had not found the courage to say it. The dance ended. They moved to the refreshment table. A group of young ladies stood nearby, whispering behind their fans. One of them, a beautiful blonde in a pink gown, approached. "Your Grace," she said, curtsying to Alexander. "How lovely to see you again. It has been years since you attended a ball. I am Lady Beatrice Whitmore. We were introduced when we were children." "I remember," Alexander said politely. "May I introduce my wife, Catherine?" Lady Beatrice's smile was sharp as glass. "Oh yes, the new Duchess. Everyone has been talking about you. Such a romantic story. And nobody marrying a duke, like something from a fairy tale." Catherine felt the insult beneath the pretty words. "I suppose it is," she said calmly. though I have found that real life is more complicated than fairy tales. Indeed, and how are you finding London? It must be overwhelming for someone not raised in society. I am finding it quite educational. I have learned that some people value appearances over substance, and that cruelty often hides behind polite words. Lady Beatrice's smile faltered. Alexander made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Well said, my dear. If you will excuse us, Lady Beatrice, I believe they are announcing dinner. He guided Catherine away. She could feel Lady Beatrice's glare on her back. You are magnificent, Alexander said quietly. She has been trying to catch my attention for years. I have never given her any encouragement, but she persists. She is very beautiful. She is very tedious. You are worth 1,000 of her. Warmth spread through Catherine's chest. They found their seats at dinner. The meal was elaborate. 7 courses. More food than Catherine had seen in months. She ate sparingly, too nervous to enjoy it. The Earl sat across from them. He stared at Catherine throughout the meal with barely concealed hostility. When dessert was served, he spoke. So, Duchess, I understand you were quite destitute before my nephew rescued you. A true charity case. How fortunate for you that he needed a wife quickly and was not particular about her background. Silence fell around the table. Everyone was listening, waiting to see how Catherine would respond. Alexander's hand clenched around his fork, but before he could speak, Catherine smiled sweetly at the Earl. Indeed, my lord, I was quite fortunate. Just as your nephew was fortunate to find a wife who values him for his character rather than his title or wealth, though I suppose such distinctions are difficult for some people to understand. The Earl's face reddened. A few people around the table hid smiles. Character, the Earl sneered. What would you know of that? A girl raised in poverty. My father was a baron, Catherine interrupted. Her voice remained calm but held steel underneath. I was not raised in poverty. I was raised by a cruel stepmother after my father's death. There is a difference. Poverty is circumstance. Cruelty is choice. I have experienced both. I have learned to recognize cruelty wherever I find it, even when it wears a lord's face. The Earl stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. This is outrageous. Alexander, your wife has insulted me. No. Alexander stood as well. His voice was cold and dangerous. You insulted my wife, in my presence, in front of witnesses. You have been attempting to undermine my marriage since the day it began. You spread vicious lies about Catherine to anyone who will listen. You question my fitness as Duke, because I will not tolerate your schemes. This ends now. You are no longer welcome in my homes. Not Ravenswood. Not this townhouse. If you spread one more rumor about my wife, I will ruin you. I have enough influence and money to see you destroyed socially and financially. Do not test me. The ballroom had gone completely silent. Every eye was on them. The Earl's face went from red to purple. You would choose this nobody over your own family? I would choose my wife over anyone. Every time, without hesitation. Now leave, before I have you thrown out. The Earl looked around the room, seeking support. He found none. Lady Pemberton was nodding, in agreement with her nephew. Others were whispering behind their hands, but their expressions showed approval, not condemnation. Finally, the Earl spun on his heel and stalked from the room. Silence lingered for a moment, then conversation slowly resumed. Alexander sat back down and took Catherine's hand under the table. Are you all right? He asked quietly. She nodded, though she was trembling. You just cut ties with your last remaining family. He stopped being family when he attacked you. I meant what I said. I will choose you, Always. Tears pricked Catherine's eyes. She blinked them back. Around them, people were watching with new expressions. Curiosity, respect. Some even smiled. Lady Pemberton leaned across the table. "Ignore my husband, dear. He is a bitter, greedy man. I have tolerated him for 30 years, but I am glad Alexander finally stood up to him. You are good for my nephew. I can see it. He is more alive tonight than I have seen him in years. Thank you for that." Catherine managed a wobbly smile. "Thank you, my lady." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. People approached to introduce themselves. Some were genuinely kind, others were simply curious. But no one else dared insult her, not after Alexander's public declaration. When they finally returned home well past midnight, Catherine was exhausted. Alexander walked her to her chamber door. "You were extraordinary tonight," he said. "The way you stood up to my uncle, the way you held your head high despite everything. You are the strongest person I have ever known." I was terrified. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite fear. You did that tonight. I am proud of you. I am proud to be your husband. Catherine looked up at him. They stood close together in the dim hallway. His dark eyes held something new, something warm and intense. Her breath caught. "Alexander," she whispered, "I need to tell you something. I have been trying to find the courage for weeks. I cannot wait any longer. I love you. I am in love with you. I know we married for practical reasons. I know you did not want love, but I cannot help it. You have been so kind to me, so patient and good. You make me feel safe and valued and beautiful. I wake each morning excited to see you. I go to sleep each night wishing you were beside me. I love you, and I needed you to know." She held her breath, waiting for his response, fearing rejection, fearing that her confession had ruined the fragile connection between them. But Alexander smiled, a slow, wondering smile that transformed his entire face. He cupped her cheek in his palm. "Catherine," he said softly, "I have been in love with you since the day I found you in that bath. Perhaps even before that. Perhaps from the moment my solicitor showed me your portrait and I saw sadness in your painted eyes and wanted to make it go away. I have been fighting it, telling myself it was too soon, too fast, too dangerous to love someone again. But you broke through every wall I built. You made me want to live again, to feel again. I love you. I love you so much it terrifies me. But I am done being afraid. I am done keeping distance between us. I want you. I want us fully, completely." Joy flooded through Catherine so intensely she thought she might burst. She threw her arms around his neck. He caught her, lifting her off her feet, and kissed her. It was their first real kiss. Soft at first, tentative, then deeper, fierce, full of weeks of restrained longing. His hands tangled in her hair, her fingers gripped his shoulders. They broke apart, gasping, then kissed again and again. When they finally separated, both were breathing hard. Alexander rested his forehead against hers. "I want to be with you," he said. "Truly be with you, as your husband, but only if you want that too. Only if you are ready." Catherine's heart raced. Fear and desire warred within her, but desire won. "I want that. I want you. I have wanted you for so long." He kissed her once more, tender and reverent. Then he took her hand and led her into her chamber. The door closed softly behind them. Catherine woke in her bed as dawn light filtered through the curtains. For a moment, she was disoriented. Then she felt the warmth beside her, turned her head, saw Alexander sleeping next to her, his dark hair tousled, his face peaceful. She smiled. Everything had changed last night. The final walls between them had fallen. They had come together in passion and tenderness. He had been gentle with her, patient, making sure she felt safe and cherished. Afterward, he had held her close and whispered love words against her skin until she fell asleep in his arms. She reached out and traced the line of his jaw. His eyes opened. He smiled sleepily. "Good morning, wife." "Good morning, husband." He pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "I do not want to move from this bed ever again. The servants will talk. Let them. We are married. We have every right to spend the morning in bed." Catherine laughed. The sound felt foreign after so many years of holding laughter inside. But with Alexander, laughter came easily. Joy came easily. Love came easily. They spent the next week in London, attending more balls and dinners. Gradually society accepted Catherine. Some still whispered, but most were won over by Alexander's obvious devotion to her. He never left her side. He danced with her more than was proper. He looked at her like she was the only woman in every room. Lady Pemberton invited them to tea and told Catherine stories about Alexander as a boy. "He was always so serious," she said fondly, "even as a child, too much responsibility too young. I am glad he has you now. You have brought light back into his life." 2 months after their arrival in London, Catherine woke feeling ill. She barely made it to the chamber pot before being sick. Betsy found her there and called for the doctor. He examined Catherine and smiled. "Congratulations, Your Grace. You are with child." Catherine's hands went to her stomach. A baby. She was going to have a baby. Alexander's baby. Joy and terror swirled together. She had not thought about children, had not let herself imagine that far into the future. When Alexander came home that evening, she met him in the foyer. She took his hands and pressed them to her belly. "We are going to have a child," she said, watching his face. His eyes widened. Shock, then wonder, then pure joy crossed his features. He dropped to his knees and pressed his ear to her stomach, even though it was far too early to hear anything. "A baby," he whispered. "Our baby. Are you happy?" He looked up at her, tears shining in his eyes. Happy does not begin to describe it. I am overwhelmed, grateful, terrified, but mostly I am happy. So impossibly happy. He stood and lifted her into his arms, spinning her around. She laughed. When he set her down, he kissed her deeply. "I love you," he said against her lips. "I love you so much. You have given me everything. A reason to live, a reason to smile, and now a child. I do not deserve any of it." "Yes, you do. We deserve this. We deserve happiness. Then we shall have it. I promise you, no matter what comes, we will face it together." She believed him. For the first time in her life, she believed in promises. They returned to Ravenswood Manor before Catherine began to show. She wanted their child born there, in the place that had become home. The servants were overjoyed at the news. Mrs. Wells cried happy tears and immediately began planning the nursery. Catherine spent her pregnancy in blissful contentment. Alexander refused to let her overwork herself. He hovered constantly, worried about her health. She found it endearing, even when it became excessive. "I am only having a baby," she said one day when he insisted she rest instead of working in the garden. "Women do this all the time." "You are not women. You are my Catherine, my wife, the mother of my child. I will not take any chances with your well-being." She kissed him to stop his worrying. It usually worked. Her stepmother sent a letter demanding money for her stepsister's weddings. Catherine read it once and threw it in the fire. She owed that woman nothing. Alexander noticed but said nothing. He simply held her close that evening and reminded her that she never had to see her stepmother again if she did not wish to. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Catherine grew round and ungainly. She felt ridiculous, but Alexander insisted she was beautiful. He talked to her belly every night, telling their unborn child stories about Ravenswood, about Catherine, about the life they would build together. When labor began on a cold March morning, Catherine was terrified. The midwife was called. Alexander wanted to stay with her, but the midwife forbade it. Men did not belong in birthing rooms. He paced outside the door, driving the servants mad with his anxiety. Labor lasted 12 hours, long, painful hours, where Catherine thought she might die. But finally, as evening fell, she heard the baby's first cry. Relief flooded through her. "A son," the midwife announced, cleaning the squalling infant. "A healthy boy." Catherine held her son for the first time and fell instantly in love. He was tiny and red-faced and perfect. His eyes were dark like his father's. His hair was a soft brown like hers. Alexander was finally allowed in. He approached the bed slowly, as though in a dream. Catherine held out the baby. He took his son carefully, cradling the tiny body against his chest. "Hello," he whispered. "Hello, little one. I am your father, and I promise you I will love you every day of your life. I will protect you, guide you, never let you doubt your worth. You are precious. You are wanted. You are loved." Tears streamed down his face. Catherine reached up and wiped them away. "What shall we name him?" she asked. "Thomas, after my father, and James, after yours. Thomas James Hartley, the future Duke of Ravenswood." "Thomas James," Catherine repeated. "It is perfect." Alexander sat on the edge of the bed, still holding their son. Catherine leaned against his shoulder. They sat together as night fell, a family now complete and whole. "You saved me," Alexander said quietly. "I was drowning in loneliness and grief. I had forgotten how to be happy. Then you came into my life. You brought warmth and laughter and love. You gave me reason to hope again. I do not know what I did to deserve you, but I thank God every day that I found you." "You saved me too," Catherine said. "I thought I was worthless, unlovable, destined to suffer. But you saw value in me when no one else did. You treated me with kindness and respect. You made me believe I deserved happiness. We saved each other, Alexander. That is what love does." He kissed her forehead. "I love you, more than words can express. I love you too, always." They sat together in the quiet room, their son sleeping peacefully in his father's arms, and knew that they had found what so few ever find: true love, complete acceptance, home. The cruel world had tried to break them both, but they had survived. They had found each other, and together they had built something beautiful. Their story was not a fairy tale. It was better than that. It was real, messy and complicated, and absolutely true. And they lived, not just happily ever after, but fully and completely and with deep, abiding joy for all the days of their lives.